We're here to talk today about lots of things stress related, and I think everyone listening will have been affected by stress at some point in their life. I know I have, and I know you have. I don't think it's an unusual thing, but it still seems like something that we're not on top of, and it's still getting us down, isn't it? But first off, you've had such an interesting journey from research scientist to a medical herbalist. That's quite a journey, isn't it? And of course, you do wellness coaching now as well. So it'd be lovely if you could just share that journey with us and what led you into doing this type of work.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was a research scientist, as you've said, and I really, really loved it. It was really good fun, but I knew very early on that I wanted to help people. I was finding that the research that I was doing wasn't immediate enough. It didn't quite connect somehow. I happened to be in Scotland, in fact, on a retreat. I had a chance conversation with a doctor who said to me, "You'll work out what it is you want to do." And by the end of the train journey home, I had signed up to do a herbal medicine degree. That was just the start, really, of the journey about going into healthcare, into hormone health, and into learning more, learning functional medicine, coaching, all sorts of other bits and pieces to try and bring this idea of really holistic wellness together.
Love that. And I'm interested just in a hobby perspective, herbs and flowers and their medicinal properties myself, purely hobby. And it's only just started over the summer there, but it's a fascinating world, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. I mean, I
Mm.
walk down the road and all I do is look at weeds. And people probably think I'm crazy because you can't walk down a road without seeing half a dozen different medicinal plants. Often we just completely discard them as being weeds. But when you start to look into them, you'll find that there's so much beauty in them and so much healing in them as well.
Agreed. I can't go anywhere now without scanning the place, and I can't walk the dog without coming back with for a handful of things. But of course, your work then took a turn to really focusing on hormone health. Is that right?
Yeah.
So how did you kind of hone in on that?
So I was a child with really, really bad period pain. And it wasn't until I was 16 that I started to go to the doctor and saying there's something wrong. The solution was to go on the pill. It took 8 years of me going to the doctor and going, no, something's not right, something's not right. And having, male, middle-aged gynecologists telling me it's all in my head, I'd grow out of it. It's just my hormones. But actually, I had endometriosis. And my own journey of that took me through conventional medicine in terms of looking at, I had the surgery, I had the hormone treatment, all of it. But much, much later, when I started studying herbal medicine and started taking herbs myself and going from being in pain every single day to being completely pain free, and then learning more and more about how hormones work and realizing that actually everything that I eat, everything that I do in terms of my lifestyle was really impacting on that pain and on that condition, that I thought I really want people to understand what's going on in their hormones and how it's all linked together so that they can make educated decisions about their own healthcare.
So when it comes to stress, cortisol and whatnot, was actually happening in the body when we're stressed?
When we're stressed, our body goes into something called fight or flight mode. We can go into the geeky science a little bit, but I'll
Yeah,
try not to do too much
please
geeky
do.
science. So we have two different modes. We have two different parts of our nervous system. We have the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. And one of those is rest and digest. So that's the point where our body is going, we're nice and calm, we can reproduce, we can digest our food. It's a very nice calming system. And then we have the the stress mode, if you like, which is when your body goes, whoa, hang on a minute, we're under stress. We need to have a different response. And that different response comes in the form of cortisol being elevated. And that cortisol tells your body to put all its energy into action, so into dealing with the stress. So things such as your digestion gets disrupted, your thyroid function gets impaired, your hormones, your sex hormones start to change because none of that's really needed. We're in this emergency situation and we need to cope with it. All of that just goes out the window. All the energy goes into our muscles, even comes away from our brain as well, which is why if we've had a stressful time, we can be a bit brain foggy, but all of that cortisol comes into our muscles and gets us ready for action. Now, that's great if it's a single one-off stress, and the best thing you can do if you're in that single, acute stress situation is to actually do something physical, some form of exercise to release that cortisol from the body. Even like shaking, so I'm shaking my hands as I'm doing it. Even just shaking your body, shaking your hands, dancing, anything just to release that cortisol. But the problem is our lifestyle is filled with lots of little tiny stresses, and our body doesn't know the difference. So it's going into that fight or flight mode pretty much on a daily, sometimes even hourly basis. And that's when problems start to occur.
And so does that raise cortisol? Is that the hormone?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, yeah, when that's raised and we're in a state of stress, as you mentioned there, it can start to affect every sort of aspect of our life, doesn't it? Like you said about brain foggy. So that might, think about our audience today, small business owners might start to affect decision making. It could affect sleep. I feel sleep problems just puts a magnifying glass over everything else anyway, never mind lack of sleep because of stress. I mean, that's three things that small business owners really need. They need sleep, need to be able to have a clear head, make good decisions. I mean, productivity as well. I would imagine it would affect everything, wouldn't it?
It really does. Sorry, I was going to say, yeah, I just want to go into cortisol because this is
Sure.
really important, especially as a small business owner. So, cortisol isn't a bad thing. We need it to survive, and it has its own natural cycle. So, when we wake up of a morning, our cortisol is at its highest, and that gives us the energy to wake up and get out of bed. So, if you find that you're sluggish in the morning, then the chances are there's something going on with your cortisol. And then it should dip to its lowest point throughout the day. If you've got work emails pinging, if you've got some stress situation going on, then that causes spikes in cortisol throughout the day. If you're working late into the night, because I know a lot of small business owners don't necessarily have good boundaries around working time. If you're working late into the night, that in itself can cause a raise in cortisol. And that means that you're not allowing your cortisol to dip to its lowest point in the evening, which is what you need for good sleep.
It's interesting, isn't it? What might be some signs that stress is starting to manifest in our body that, we might not realize straight away?
So you mentioned sleep. Sleep is probably one of the biggest indicators. That could be not getting to sleep when you go to bed. So maybe you go to bed and your brain's still racing and you're struggling to get to sleep. Or it could be that you wake up early in the morning. That's a sign that your cortisol spike's happening earlier in the morning. If you get to the point where you've got no energy, actually that's a slightly different cortisol picture. So energy levels are another good one to watch. It's different for every single person. For some people, they'll feel it in their digestive system. Like I said, your digestion goes out the window when you've got cortisol. So that could be issues with digestive problems, bloating. It could be a whole bunch of things around that. It could be if you're a woman, it could be your periods will go a little bit awry. There are so many different ways in which stress manifests that it's really important to start listening to your body when you're calm. And if you notice all sorts of strange things happening, then looking at, okay, is stress a factor here?
So understanding what normal looks like and taking it from there. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And as you say, there's so many stress factors. You mentioned even affecting us on an hourly basis. It's quite scary, isn't it? And of course, small business owners are busy people. A lot of them are juggling employed roles alongside building a business or caring responsibilities for kids or parents or whatever it might be. They tend to be busy people. But what steps can they take to try and reduce stress or manage it?
I mean, I'm quite pragmatic, and the people that I work with, I recognize that we've got our lifestyle. I don't ever say you have to do this, this, and this. What we can do are make really tiny changes that would really help to have a big impact. We keep talking about sleep. Prioritizing sleep is really important. That means going to bed. It's really boring. Going to bed at the same time every night, waking up at the same time every morning, making sure you get somewhere between 7.5 and 9 hours sleep. Now, if you're struggling to get to sleep, then look at, well, okay, what am I doing before I go to bed?
Mm.
So then you track back and you switch off earlier in the evening. So I think I'm just as guilty of this as everybody, but not working until late in the night, making sure that you have a good couple of hours to decompress and maybe coming up with a little bedtime routine where you switch off your phone, you switch off your laptop, and you just do something nice and relaxing, maybe a hot bath, maybe just sitting and reading for half an hour before you go to bed. The fundamental is get your sleep sorted.
So if you could give us any one tip today, it would be that one, get sleep sorted. Absolutely. And I know in your work, you talk about the importance of looking after not just physical health, but also emotional and spiritual well-being as well. Could you talk to us a bit more about that? Because we're so quick to focus on the physical, aren't we? I get really tense neck and shoulders, and that's when I know I've been a bit worked up, but there's most likely there's more to it than that.
I mean, my own learning journey from my own health, but also from seeing my patients, is very much around, our mental health affects our physical health. And if there are things that are bothering us, then actually we can't get well physically because the two just go hand in hand. Even just thinking about it from a brain point of view, we have two different parts of the brain. We have our prefrontal cortex, which is that decision making, it's the intelligent part of the brain. And then we've got the amygdala, which is your lizard brain or your chimp brain. And when we're stressed, chimp brain takes over. So our prefrontal cortex can't work as well. And so actually trying to think becomes impossible. Doing some processing from a mental health point of view, could be journaling, it could be talking to friends or a therapist or counselor, can make a huge difference to our physical health. And then from a spiritual health point of view, it doesn't matter what belief system you believe in, and even if you're completely agnostic, somehow having that sense of purpose for your life gives you that wish to get up in the morning. It gives you the will to heal and to grow as a human being. But it's not just looking after the body. We have to look after all the bits of ourselves in order to be truly well.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? We just don't know, we just don't think about it often enough. But as soon as you're talking about it, it just makes so much sense that, of course, it all goes together. And then, of course, if we're thinking about female business owners in particular, you mentioned before that sometimes periods can be interrupted. And of course, females and males have different hormones going on. So, is there anything in particular that our female listeners should be watching out for or should be aware of when it comes to their hormones and stress?
The main thing is that it's all connected. I'm sorry, I'm such a geeky scientist. So back to the geeky
Carry on,
side.
I'm fascinated.
So you have a hormone currency, and that hormone currency is dictated by cholesterol, which turns into something called pregnenolone. You don't need to know the names of these things. What you need to know is that you've got a bank of hormone currency. And this applies to blokes as well as women, but it's more obvious, I think, in women. When you're stressed, that hormone currency is being spent on producing cortisol. So that means you don't have enough left to produce the estrogen, the testosterone, progesterone. And that's why your periods will get affected. All of that's related to insulin as well. So related to your blood sugar. All of that then is related to your thyroid function. So it's a really complicated web of hormones that we work in. In terms of if your periods start to go off, that's like a vital sign. It's almost like your blood pressure, it's evidence that something's happening in your body. So taking note and then trying to uncover. So from a functional medicine perspective, it's always about trying to find that root cause of what's really going on. So learning, like we said earlier, learning about what's normal for you, and then learning, okay, this is going wrong, in my periods, what's causing that? Because it's not, we often dismiss, particularly as we get older. I'm a woman of a certain age.
We're coming on to that next.
We often think, oh, it's just perimenopause or it's just my hormones. So PMT, it's just my hormones. Actually, it might not be. Well, it'll be hormones, but it might not be estrogen. It might be cortisol.
And
It
then
might
why do we so casually brush off it might be PMS anyway, or the likes of that, these female problems as they're put down to, but they're quite debilitating. They absolutely have the ability to be, don't they?
Yeah, that's a subject for a whole
Yeah,
podcast, I think.
that's chapter two coming
Yeah,
soon.
that comes down to how women's health is being viewed in the medical profession
Mm,
and, you know, the dismissal of women's health issues, the fact that there's a lack of research in women's health issues,
mhm,
the way that the lack of training that we get on women's health issues, all of that feeds into a very complicated picture of dismissal. And I think as women, it's really important that we trust our bodies, that we trust what our bodies are telling us,
mhm.
and then we advocate for that and we say, you know, there is something wrong. And even if we get dismissed, we go back and we say, there's something wrong. I want you to help me find out.
Absolutely. And as you say, we've mentioned a few times now, it's about knowing what your good is, isn't it? So things like period tracking can help with that and seeing where you're at in your cycle, even tracking your mood, that sort of thing. It all helps, doesn't it? I personally had a hysterectomy last year, so I don't get periods anymore. But when I did, I was a huge advocate for that, for tracking and particularly tracking my mood because it was so obvious. There was certain times of the month that I felt up and down, and with that came stress.
Yeah.
So at least then, could try and manage it, watch out for it. It's really important to know your baseline, I guess, isn't it? So that you know when something's off. Now, you touched on a woman of a certain age there. You're not alone. So then we throw into the works maybe perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. And this is a time surely in a woman's life where you need to be even more conscious of stress and well-being and that sort of triangle that you mentioned about emotional, physical and spiritual well-being surely becomes really important at that time.
Yes. And also the web of hormones as well, because it's, you know, estrogen makes us feel good, it makes us feel kind. It's a very warming hormone. Gives us our ability to be caring and to nurture. When that starts to naturally decline, that, if you like, protective mechanism goes. And so if there are any other underlying factors such as insulin resistance or thyroid dysfunction or stress, then those are the things that come to the fore. And a lot of the symptoms that we just dismiss as being perimenopause could actually be related to blood sugar dysregulation.
Mm-hmm.
It could be related to cortisol. It could be related to thyroid function. But we just dismiss it. And so, again, it comes down to knowing your baseline, trusting your body, and then advocating for that. And recognizing also we need more self-care during that time.
Mm-hmm.
We need to really be gentle with ourselves. We need to find it's also that big transition point in life where for many women that caregiving role has gone or is transitioned into something different, and our sense of identity can go with that as well. And so really coming back to, well, what's my purpose in life, what am I here for? And that doesn't have to be a big massive I'm going to change the world kind of purpose. It could be, I'm here to support my family as being a purpose in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be, I want to run a successful business,
Mm-hmm.
and that's purpose. But having that hook to hang our identity on, from going from being a reproductive woman to
Mm-hmm.
something else, is a really important part of that transition.
Mm-hmm. A huge part of female life, isn't it? Yeah, I'm definitely discovering that as I'm entering that perimenopause stage. Yeah, things change definitely, and you need to be more aware, more alert of what's going on in your body. So coming on to more about your work, Victoria, because I know you've developed your own approach called compassionate coaching. Is that right? Could you talk to us about what that looks like and how that helps people manage their health?
Yeah, so I tend to work as a health practitioner, But as we've said, spiritual and mental health is a really important part of well-being. And I'm a meditation teacher as a sideline. And part of my studies of that have been around learning and developing techniques to really deeply listen to an individual. And there's something really, really special when you hold space for somebody at a very deep level without bringing your own judgment and thoughts into the room, but then trust your own wisdom that to say the right thing at the right time, that allows somebody to deeply uncover what are the factors that are affecting their own health. And bringing that into a coaching environment means that, I'm trying to support women to change their lifestyle in order to better care for themselves, because we always, particularly women, come last in our own agenda. Our self-care comes last, and there are many different reasons why. So it's trying to unpick the factors as to why do you come last? How do you start to prioritize your own self-care?
Well, I love that you've came from such a scientific background, but now that you're doing things like meditation, like how in herbal medicine and whatnot, how do you combine that? Feels like two completely different worlds. How do you combine the scientific side with the more holistic side?
For me, it's science, actually.
Yeah,
So
true.
I think there is a very deeply spiritual side to me, which I don't find at odds with the science, but herbal medicine has a really good scientific basis. And now there's lots of research coming out about the brain-body relationship and how, that's all interlinked. And meditation has a huge impact on the brain. So we can actually change our thinking. We can have huge benefits on our nervous system from doing breathing exercises, from doing vagus nerve stimulation. And for me, I love learning things. So it's learning things and then thinking, okay, well, how does that really work?
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding that the science is slowly catching up with, old wisdom from Chinese
Mm-hmm.
medicine, for example, or Ayurveda, and that there's so much we don't know about the
Oh
human
yeah.
body. It's unreal.
Mm-hmm.
But science is starting to uncover some of these things.
Wow. And how fortunate are we to live now where we have all those sort of ancestral remedies and methods available to us, but we also have traditional science, modern science, medicine. So to combine the both, really good. And is there any, now because you have such a broad background across both those worlds, holistic and science, is there any myths that you hear or misconceptions you hear that you just would love to just bust right now?
The biggest one that I'm on a bit of a mission at the moment is about detoxing. So detoxing or detoxification is really important. It's really important actually for stress, because we need to get rid of that cortisol and we need to get rid of excess estrogen, and our hormones are excreted through our detoxification processes. Really, really important part of hormone health. But I see lots of detox protocols where you starve yourself for a week and then you feel really unwell. You're supposed to do juice fast, all sorts of stuff about detoxing, and they're all just complete nonsense, to be
Hmm.
honest. Now, that doesn't mean you can't improve your detoxification. There are definitely different nutrients that you need, but we detox on a daily basis. Detoxing is about supporting liver health. And when you start looking at that, unfortunately, alcohol, big factor in terms of
Mm-hmm.
detoxing. But there's lots of things that we can do to then improve detoxing. So this idea, and that doesn't mean that you can't take a period of time and really go, okay, just for a week, I'm going to eliminate all the things that I normally have
Mm-hmm.
in my day-to-day life, coffee, sugar,
Mm-hmm.
alcohol, whatever it is, to give my liver a rest. And
Mm-hmm.
livers regenerate, so we can do things to help to support that before we kind of do the
Mm-hmm.
onslaught of life again.
So you'd be more inclined to suggest cutting out things that you know are not good for you, that you might be overdoing it, like the glass of wine of a weeknight and a bottle at the weekend, sugary snacks, you name it,
Yeah.
over like a full-blown juice cleanse for like a week, or buying a detox tea, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah, be more
Absolutely.
inclined to just have a
Absolutely.
look at your lifestyle and see what you can actually cut out to give your whole system a rest and let it do its job.
Yeah. And I run little 7-day detoxes, and that's about understanding what's going on, but
Mhm.
also it's about knowing what to eat to support that process, because there are definitely certain things that we need to eat that aren't included in juice cleansers. For instance, protein. We need good quality protein in order
Mhm.
to detox.
Gosh, when you're a woman of a certain age, that's all you hear about.
Protein. I know.
I have more conversations about protein since I turned 40 last year than I was ever expecting. Gotta get your protein. Okay. Yep. So yeah, so you were saying that then that you do run these sort of things. On that note, then for the Living Herb, where can we find you if we want to learn more about that?
I mean, come to thelivingherb.com. There's all sorts of freebies, and you can book a conversation with me. Um, I'm often on LinkedIn, so come and connect with me on LinkedIn because I love chatting to people there. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, but you'll find me more engaged on LinkedIn because it's a fun place to be.
Oh, we've all got our hubs, haven't we? Although you might use a few different platforms, we've all got our main place. Instagram's definitely mine. Although we met on LinkedIn, I enjoy LinkedIn as well. But we've all got our one that we're a bit more inclined to use, haven't we?
I've got a 7-day detox which you can download for free.
Oh, wow, okay.
I've got a more aimed at women 28-day hormone eat for your hormones challenge, which is about learning the cycles of eating, depending on whether you're building estrogen or building progesterone at different
Hmm.
parts of your monthly cycle. I've also got a stress freebie, but I'm not sure if it's live at the moment. But I will send you the link and we can.
I will include all of those links in the show notes, including the link to Victoria's website and our LinkedIn as well. So if you've got any more questions about today, you know where to find her. Thank you very much. That's been such an interesting conversation. Do you think there's anything we've not covered today that you'd like to put out there?
There's absolutely loads that we haven't covered. We have just scratched the surface, but I think if you like, the one take home message that I'd love for people to go away with is trust your bodies, learn what's normal for you, and if something's going wrong, then
Mm.
talk to somebody who can actually help you find out the root cause of what's going on.
Yep, and your intuition as well is such a strong thing too, isn't it? If you feel something's off or something physically looks or feels off, then it probably is. That's great advice. Thank you so much for joining us today, Victoria. That's been a pleasure.